So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the complete rundown on how to use Claude 2, how to use the previous versions, and giving you all of the secret ways that you didn't know that you could use Claude AI. I'm making this tutorial because there is a lack of information on the internet on how to actually use the software. So watch this tutorial and hopefully it helps you out with this software, because I think with everyone covering ChatGPT, we definitely need to know how we can use the other popular pieces of software. So one thing that Claude recently did add was the 2000 tokens limit page. So essentially the reason this is really good is because it can now allow you to analyze over 500 pages or around 150,000 words. Okay, so now essentially what you can do is you can upload technical documents like entire code bases, financial statements, and even long literary works like the Iliad or the Odyssey. So essentially, this is what makes Claude really good because of the newer context windows. Now, if you want to know about the context window pricing, you can see the context window pricing right here. Claude Instant and Claude 2.0. I would recommend you use Claude 2.0, and I will get into the reasons why later on in the video. But for me, Claude 2.0 and Claude Instant are the best, but they are $8 per million tokens, and you can see the entire pricing right here. So make sure you do take a look at that if you are planning on using the API. So now that we know about what's new through the new Claude, let's get into actually some of Claude's major features that separate it from the other models. So one of the things that we did talk about was Claude's ability to summarize. One of the easiest things that you can do with Claude is you can summarize a web page. If you want to summarize a web page, just find any web page on the internet. So for example, I found this page, which is essentially AI and warfare. This is going to definitely be a topic that I'm going to be looking into making videos on. But what we want to do is you want to just click Control A, then just click Control C. Then if we come over to Claude, all we need to do is just drop this down right here, and you can see it goes into a paste.txt, and then I can put summarize this text. Now, the reason I'm showing you guys this way to do this is because other tutorials, there's a secret way, like you can actually put a link into Claude and you can say summarize the web page on this link. But the problem with that method is that it doesn't actually work that effectively. So that's why I'm teaching you guys to do it like this, because this is far more effective. So you can see right here that it says a summary of key points from the text, and it's giving me a very good solution. Now, I do want to talk about something that could happen when you're trying to do this and you're using Claude. What you can see on screen now is something called a rate limit. So if you're using Claude as a free user, sometimes what they'll randomly do, because Claude doesn't actually have any paid plans, they'll actually throttle some users. Now, essentially what this means is that you do need to use a different way or a different website in order to access Claude. What I personally use is I use a website called Forefront AI. It allows me to access all of the large language models with unlimited. So you can see here when I go onto Forefront, and essentially Forefront is a website that you can access many different AI models from. You can access the most popular ones. You can see that I've got GPT 3.5, GPT 4, Claude Instant 1.2, and Claude 2. The reason this is really good is because later on in the video, I talk about why you need to use Claude 2 and not Claude 2.1. But this is where you can use that if they do throttle your usage. So be sure to sign up with Forefront with a link in below if you do want to do that, because it's actually pretty easier. Now, essentially what you can see right here is that it summarizes the text, and it says, here is a summary from the key points from the text. AI governance is challenging, yada, yada, yada. AI standardization. This is something that Claude does excel at. One of the Claude's key marketing points is that it can summarize text that is very long, and this is something that you should be using it. So if you're trying to summarize a web page, this is something that you can do. And like I stated before, if this doesn't work for whatever reason because you're just new to Claude, just use something like Forefront so that you can still access it. And there's other websites in the description as well that I'll tell you about. So the next thing I want to talk about with Claude is going to be not only summarizing web pages, but summarizing long documents. As you do know, frequently we do encounter long documents, especially if we are within the working world. What you want to do with Claude is access the 200K context token to analyze whatever long document it is that you are going to be using. Now, of course, there are some times when it can hallucinate, and I'll talk later on in the video about where these hallucinations do occur. So pay attention and watch the entire video, because it will give you a full guide on how to use the software. Additionally, I'm going to show you guys how this software can actually summarize one of the key documents of our recent times. So this was a PDF document about AI, and this is a government document, and I want to summarize this document and see what it's all about. So of course, what I'm first going to do is I'm firstly going to download a said document. Then of course, once I've got my PDF, I'm then going to upload this, and I'm going to put summarize this in 10 points and give me a paragraph about what it's all about. Then I'm going to just see exactly how long it takes Claude to do this. But as you guys can see right here, it says due to unexpected capacity constraints, it's unable to respond right now. And that's of course when I'm going to use Forefront. So you can see here, I've uploaded this to Forefront. You can see that the model selected is Claude 2. And then I'm going to ask it to summarize with 10 points. And then I'm going to say, give me a paragraph that tells me what it's all about. You can see that Claude is thinking about this. It's going to be looking at the document, analyzing it. And then, of course, we're going to see exactly what this document is all about. You can see that Claude gives us a 10-point summary from the key information from the document. It says, establishes new agency requirements for AI governance, innovation, and risk. Agencies must declare a CAIO to coordinate AI activities, and it's giving me all of this information. Now you can see here that this isn't looking to be too quick, but this is of course what happens when you use really long documents. The one that I just had there, I think was around 30 or 40 pages, so I'm not surprised that it does take a decent while. But you can see right here that it gives us a really nice summary, and this is what the point of Claude is all about. So when you want to summarize documents, this is something that Claude 2 does excel at. So definitely use it for this. And there are more and more examples that I'm going to show you later on in the video that show you exactly how good this is. So one of the things that Claude excels at is, of course, creative writing. Creative writing is something that story writers use all the time to help them not only brainstorm ideas, but come up with entire novels and entire books. Now, the reason that Claude is really good at this is because with the extended context window and with Claude's natural way for being good at long text, it is something that I've seen on many different forums that people are currently using for creative writing. You can see right here that someone reposted this and saying Claude remains the best solution for creative writing, especially dialogue. Look, I've been using Claude for some time now, occasionally switching back to ChatGPT, but to get to the point, Claude is insanely good at creative writing, especially when it comes to dialogue between characters. So here you can see I've asked Claude to create a fictional dialogue between Sam Altman and Ilya Sutskever after they've realized that they've created a dangerous superintelligence that could potentially destroy the world. I think this is pretty decent. I'm not entirely someone who does a lot of writing. That's not something that's in my forte, but I do know that creative writing is something that is difficult. And with the rise of these large language models, systems like Claude do consistently help us with this kind of work. So you can see right here that it was able to generate this kind of stuff. And what I've also seen from many different users was that Claude is able to consistently generate longer pieces of text than ChatGPT because of its inherent style. So when you're using this for creative writing, Claude is definitely going to be one of your best bets because it's definitely more creative in its conversations. Another thing that people can do, what they do like to do is they do like to upload the files. So you do know that Claude does have the option to upload the files. What people will do is they'll upload an entire book. Maybe if you're a creative writer, you can upload your entire book here, and then it's as a PDF or just simply as a text, and then you can ask Claude to write your short story or do your creative writing in that style. It doesn't need to be your stories. It could be some stories that you think are really interesting. You could find the PDF online, but it's definitely something that you could do that does work. And I know that people use this because they've talked about it quite a lot online. So here you can see I've said write a screenplay for Alex and Steve's first day out in Minecraft. Make it long, creative, and interesting. And you can see that it's writing this screenplay with everything that you need to have. It says fade in, Minecraft world day, a vast blocky landscape stretches in as the far eyes can see, trees, yada, yada, yada. And then you can see it talks about the conversation and it ends Act 1 like this. Now, of course, other large language models can do this, but this is a key point to where Claude does stand out. So another thing that you can do with Claude is you can essentially use it to create code. Now, Claude isn't known for its coding capabilities, but it is something that Claude is capable of, which is why if you want to do some basic Python, you can use Claude for this. I know that many people do code quite a lot, and they do struggle to find tools that you can use online that are free. And of course, Claude Instant and Claude, whatever model you want to use, is free at the time because they don't have any paid models. So if you do want to do that, it is quite similar to ChatGPT in the sense that it gives you your basic Python and then you can click copy code. And then I simply ran this in a Python code tester and you can see that it does actually work as a very basic calculator. The only caveat to using Claude as a calculator, I would say, is that it's not that great when it does come to producing many different pieces of code. So I would say that you need to make sure that you do thoroughly check the code that it does work, because anything that is more advanced will require a more advanced system. If you are trying to do basic things in Python, this can work, and it can work to flesh out the initial pieces of the code, but I would definitely ensure that you don't just send this code off. Make sure whatever code it is that you use Claude for, you definitely into a tester to ensure the code works, and of course debugging anything with other more advanced systems. So another thing that many people do want to do is they do want to build with the Claude API, because this does actually allow you to build much more powerful AI systems and much more powerful AI programs than simply interacting with the Claude interface. If you do want to do this, you can't just come to this page over here, which is console.anthropic.com, and then log in. This is because you don't have a console account. So essentially what you need to do is you need to make sure that you first go ahead and get a console account. Now, in order to get a console account, you can see right here that on getting access to Claude, it says Anthropic is rolling out Claude slowly and incrementally as we work to ensure the safety and scalability of it in alignment with our company values. We're working with select partners to roll out Claude in their products. If you're interested in becoming one of these partners, we are accepting applications. Keeping in mind, due to the overwhelming interest we've received so far, we might take a while to reply. And you can see here, this is the Claude API access page. What you need to do is you need to just essentially apply here, and then you want to just fill this all out. If you don't have a GitHub, you're going to need to make one. Make sure you have a very valid social media, and I'm pretty sure that the waitlist is pretty huge Claude's API. Then once you've done all of that, that's when you can then finally log into the console.anthropic page, and then of course you can start to use the API. And later on in the video, I'll show you all of the cool things that you can actually build Claude's API. So one of the things I do want to tell you about Claude, and this is going to be the Claude tips section, is to rewrite some questions that Claude you ask it. So one of the things that did happen with the recent update to Claude was that Claude actually won't answer any new questions. And of course, this is problematic for several reasons. The main one being the fact that the usability has gone down quite a bit. But I found a way to get around this that I've seen on Reddit. And this was something that I did do myself when I was using Claude. So please pay attention, because this is going to help you out quite a bit. It says, unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable reducing large sections of copyrighted material without permission. Then you can see 4 months ago, the version of Claude that we had before, this version, when asked to rewrite the ending of the Titanic, this time Jack is evil, you can see that it actually manages to write this, and it does it pretty well. It continues with the story, and you're able to get it. Now, of course, compared to today's version where it says, unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reframe the question. A Reddit user actually responded to this, and they said, look, just reframe the question and you'll get Claude to respond. You can see that with rephrasing Claude, we get create a fictional ending of Titanic where Jack is evil. You can see that it says, here is a fictional alternative ending where Jack is portrayed as evil, and then we do get our response. Although it is frustrating that we do have to prompt it in a way where we have to rephrase our questions, if you're someone that is just, use Claude, this is going to be something that you may just have to do. So I would say that rephrasing your questions in a way that seems more lighthearted is going to be a method that is going to be rather effective if you continue to use Claude, because the usability seemingly has gone down. Additionally, a tip that I would have for Claude users is that don't use 2.1, use either 1 or use 2. And of course, like I said before, if you want access to Claude 2, just use Forefront, like I said before. And I'm going to show you why. You can see that Claude 2.0, I'm not sure why they did this update, honestly, because you can see that whilst it does get things more right from Claude 2 to Claude 2.1, the problem is that it declines to answer around 40% of hard questions, which isn't really good for a model. And of course, usability, which means that if you want more questions to be answered, you definitely want to go to Claude 2.0. So like we said, if you do want to use Claude 2.0, just make sure you sign up to Forefront, and then just from the drop-down menu, either use Claude Instant 1.2, which is something that you can have unlimited messages with, or use Claude 2, and then of course, you can essentially have around 70 messages every 3 hours, and this one is going to be far better than the initial one right here, where I'm literally only getting a couple of messages from that account. Now, if you do want to get some of the very best prompts for Claude, what you want to do is check out this GitHub repository. It essentially has every single online prompt that you could potentially use for Claude. And all you're going to need to do is simply click this button right here, and you're going to be able to copy these and access these straight into Claude. If you want a link for these, the link to these will be in the description, because I know that these prompts are much easier to use rather than just trying to type them in yourself. You can see that you've got Claude instant jailbreaks, you've got AI tutors, you've got many different things that you can do, such as writing tweets like you, connecting several documents in Claude, analyzing top companies using Claude, billboard ideas, creating campaigns, high ticket offers, yada, yada, yada. This document seriously has absolutely everything. So if you want to use Claude, definitely use this. And of course, if you want to use this in different models, this will work as well. So that is something that I forgot to add, but it's here. So now we're going to be taking a look at the Claude examples. Claude has been used in many different ways. And when I show you all of the crazy ways that Claude has been used, you're going to be very surprised because I had to do quite a lot of research to find this, but I'm very glad I did this research because it goes to show that although this model might seem hard to use, there are tons of people building many different applications of this software. So let's get into the first one. And this was something that won one of the competitions that Claude hosted recently. And essentially this is Claude Scholar, an AI assistant that lets researchers easily search literature. So their example shows how a biologist might model proteins and generate molecules using a natural chat interface. And essentially these are the people that won it at the Claude Hackathon. It was essentially an event where they wanted people to submit their submissions on how individuals could use Claude's API system to build readily available AI programs. And this was something that I did find to be really, really cool. You can see that with the software working quite a decent amount, and this is something that people are going to be using. Secondly, there was something called Dr. Claude. This was something that was awarded third place at Anthropic's Build with Claude Hackathon. They essentially combined the planning power of AlphaGo style Monte Carlo tree search with the contextual relevance and conversational dialogue of Claude 2, and they managed to create a conversational chatbot that can essentially help you achieve a diagnosis. So you can see from this, essentially what it does is it narrows down certain things and essentially kind of this algorithmic way like a tree search, and then diagnoses you with something, which is going to be far more effective than browsing the internet, freaking yourself out online about certain health. You can see this image here shows you how the conversation goes. And what's interesting is that it does give you a percentage on what it thinks you do have. So it's definitely something that you could use Claude to do if you do want to build on the API of Claude. Then we have AGP Chat, which is essentially a service that integrates personal data to provide healthcare guidance via conversational AI. Users can upload information, review visualized insights, and chat with an AI assistant to understand their health. The reason I find this one to be a lot better is because unlike Dr. Claude, what this one can actually do for you is essentially when you've uploaded data to Claude, it actually will take that data into account. So unlike systems where, you go online and you're looking, do I have a fever? The problem with these systems is that they don't take into account any personal data. So for example, if someone is 6'5" and is of a certain weight, these systems don't essentially ask you for your weight or any other factors that may influence the type of conditions that you might be more susceptible. That's why something like GP Chat is going to be really, really good. You can see from these things, it gives you access to healthcare, which is on demand, and is going to be something that is at least a lot more effective than just freaking yourself out online. Now, this was something that was also built with Claude 2's API, or the initial Claude, I'm not sure which one, but this is something called Bullet Papers. Essentially, it's a website that allows you to understand papers in seconds. So this is something that you could build yourself. As you do know, you can upload files to Claude, and with their API, I'm sure building a website is going to be really easy. Pretty sure that this entire thing is all automated, and you can see right here, they have this chatbot, and I'm pretty sure that this chatbot on the right-hand side is running with Claude. So something like this is of course possible to be built with Claude's API. Of course, if you don't have access, you can't do it, but I'm pretty sure that you will get it. And now I'm going to show you 6 of the craziest things people have built with Claude. So you can see right here that this is the entire list of things that were submitted to Claude's hackathon, and I'm going to show you guys some of the coolest ones. So essentially this one was something built by Unity team, and essentially it says creating tickets is much more than creating tickets itself, and essentially this allows you to create tickets really, really quickly using Claude's API. So this allows you to create Jira tickets. This is something that you might want to use. Then we have Swift Search, which is something that I would definitely want to use. This is something that summarizes YouTube videos, and of course it talks about how there's a problem with a video search returns many results. There's the possibility of many videos being clickbait, and it's also hard to choose which videos to watch. So what you do is you of course use Swift Search to essentially retrieve the video results, find whichever video it is, and then of course transcribe the text, summarize the text, and then essentially retrieve that. And you can see Swift Search right here essentially gives you all of that data. This is something that is really, really cool. I'm sure that this is something that people do want to use. But like we stated, this is something that is really, really cool. And it does show you the possibilities of building on Claude, as long as you do use Claude in conjunction with other systems. So right here, you can see that the Claude API, Whisper API, along with the YouTube Data API, allows us to build Swift search. So this kind of stuff is definitely buildable with Claude. So if you want to do that, definitely take a look at the links in the description that there will be. Then we have something called Asset GPT, which is something called really cool. And essentially what this does is it helps you with your financial data. So if you have a CSV, maybe you work at a company, maybe you have something like a CSV, just drop in that CSV file. And then essentially you can run Asset GPT to essentially get a really good summary of what exactly is going on. And this one is, I'm pretty sure it knows a lot about finance. So it's giving you all of the good stuff. And then of course you can see it's generating a red flag there, which is of course something that you do want to be highlighted because it's going to show you that this is too high. Please double check this. So this, like I said, even if you aren't creating this stuff, this is definitely stuff that you can use. And as always, links will be in the description. Then I found this one to be really cool. And this one is called Simulating Multi-Agent Networks with Langsmith. And essentially what this is that it simulates, I guess you could say Twitter with Claude, and they're all interacting as agents. This is something that won second place at the hackathon. Like I said, this is something that you can do yourself. Hopefully this video tutorial did help you understand Claude a lot more, what you can do with it, what you can build on the API. And if you have any questions, I'll be answering them in the comment section below.